What is going to happen with Arch Manning? Is he going to declare for the NFL draft after the season? Is he going to go back to Texas? Or could he possibly even be a transfer portal candidate, James? What is going on with Arch Manning?
Yo, it's wild, man. We're experiencing the first full season of Arch Manning. We've already been hearing rumblings about if Arch Manning is so good, why didn't he start over a seventh round pick last year in Quinn Ewers? A lot of fires getting built up. But hey, man, I think Arch Manning will be fine. I know everyone wants to call him a Nepo baby, but hey, Cleveland Browns owner Jimmy Haslam thinks he will skip the 2026 draft. And, for me, it's not a bad idea. Why not? I mean, I know everyone's been bringing this up since we've seen what the Saints are doing, which they look like they could be tanking. You've seen a little bit of what the Browns have been doing with drafting 500 quarterbacks in the fifth round last year. So these things are odd. But I will say this, if Arch Manning was to stay another year, I would love the topic of who's going to be number one in 2026. You got Garrett Nussmeier from LSU, got Cade Klubnik from Clemson, who's always been the poster child. But my true sense, and I feel bad for saying this because this may end up being an Anthony Richardson type of case, but I like South Carolina's quarterback Lenore Sellers as the
Yeah, I
top
do too.
prospect in the 2026 draft just because you're getting the build and you're getting some of the features that you see from little hairs of Jalen Hurts, little areas of Lamar Jackson. In some ways, you just got to be able to fix obviously those scenarios. But I will say this, Spence, if Arch is in, I wouldn't. I'd draft those four guys that I just mentioned. After that, I wouldn't touch any other quarterbacks. I'm not touching Penn State Drew Aller. I'm not
Oh
touching
my goodness.
not touching Arizona State, Sam Levitt. I'm not touching Carson Beck. I'm not
Oh
touching
yeah.
John Mater from OU. I'm not doing it. I'm not even going to trust Nico. I'm going to leave your team if you don't
Yeah, really.
pay me. I'm not doing it. So, like, I'm,
Wow.
I'm a big hater on Drew Aller just because of the tape. Obviously, the build and the stats show that he's a good quarterback, but I'm backing off from Drew Aller. So, these four quarterbacks are my top for the 2026 draft. But if Arch is to stay in Texas, Spence, does that make Steve Sarkisian overrated?
I've said for years, I feel like Steve Sarkisian is a bit overrated. And to answer your question from earlier about if he's so good, why wasn't he starting over a seventh round pick? I've never understood. I never got it. And I think the reason why is not Arch Manning's fault. I think it's Steve Sarkisian's fault. He had so much loyalty to a fault with Quinn Ewers. That Texas Longhorns team that we've seen each of the last 2 years, each of those teams had plenty enough talent to win the national championship. And each season they were held back for one reason and one reason alone, and it was the quarterback position, and it was Quinn Ewers. Now, a big part of this also for me, why I think Steve Sarkisian's a bit overrated. I have seen this offense completely crumble when they get into first, second, and third and goal situations where they ultimately end up stalling out and either kicking a field goal or turning the ball over on downs, but they are incapable at times of scoring whenever they're in the green zone.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand it. So that's why I've always been a big anti Steve Sarkisian fan. I never liked the hire for Texas when they made it. It never made sense to me. And I know he's one of the highest paid coaches in college football and has had some success,
Yeah,
especially since they've gone to the SEC. They've transitioned to the SEC a lot better than people were expecting. But
agree.
nonetheless, I look at that decision to not only never put Arch Manning over Quinn Ewers as the starter, but specifically, James, in that playoff game against Ohio State, when once again they were in a first and goal situation,
Yep.
you could have put Arch Manning in, who is a Josh Allen like build, and let him just run it straight up the middle
Four times.
three times, four times. That would have gotten you a touchdown. But instead, what do? We're going to roll out with Quinn Ewers. Kelvin Banks is going to blow assignment, and Jack Sawyer is going to take it to the house. Like, we know
Yep.
what happened
We
from
know
there.
what happened.
And that's all on Steve Sarkisian and Quinn Ewers. So that's another reason why I think we have to acknowledge that a transfer could also be on the table as well, especially in today's world with NIL. I don't know. I don't think he's locked and loaded for Texas for his entire career, especially not after this season.
That would be very interesting. I mean, I've been a little rough on Arch, and I'll give some context to it. I mean, this almost was similar to when back in Alabama when Bryce Young was sitting behind Mac Jones. Bryce Young was the number one player in the whole class of his high school, and number one quarterback, and he sat behind Mac Jones. Obviously, luckily, Mac Jones won the COVID title against Ohio State, and then Bryce Young played a good 2 years after that. But I at times, I think sometimes you got to roll with your experienced quarterback. So I'll give Quinn a little bit of a pass, just a little bit. But it is odd that Arch, if you're this good, you're not better than the seventh round pick. But Spence, man, if Arch was to transfer, man, one team you'd like for him to go.
It's always easy. Georgia is a candidate for a transfer. You always want to put him now.
Yep.
He has to get his DUI numbers up for that to make some sense.
Yeah, and the speeding numbers. You got to be able to drive a fast car. Make it a case like Jalen Carter.
But why not think about maybe one of the Manning's previous stops? Maybe a Tennessee spot where Peyton played, maybe Ole Miss where Eli played. I think those can make sense. But we got to keep this is the thing with Arch. I want to see a transfer. You got to keep him in the SEC. I don't want to hear him go to the Big Ten or the ACC. He needs to stay in the SEC.
Yeah, my pick was Ole Miss just because of the Ole Miss heritage. Now, yes, Eli did go, but Arch's father played receiver there at Ole Miss and then had his neck injury and then basically retired his career. So I like the Ole Miss pick. But hey, man, it's gonna be an interesting college football season, Spence. And man, don't we have a good one coming up with Texas and Ohio State, man? That's a big
We're counting down the days to football season, baby.
Ooh, it's beautiful.